Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome everyone here for the memorial service of Mr. Robert Lowell Grossman. We welcome those of you who are online. Officiating this morning is Rabbi Cantor Nancy Landsman. This time we invite the family members, those of you with the ribbons, to please rise. As everyone else, we do ask that you take a moment to be sure that your cell phones have been turned off. Now the rabbi is going to perform the ancient ceremony of Kriya.
We know many times mourners want to tear their clothing as a sign of mourning, and that is certainly an option. But the funeral home has provided for you a black ribbon, and you'll notice that it's only children who wear the ribbon on the left side over the heart, because there is no bond as unique and special as that between a parent and a child. We know everyone's hearts are torn as we say goodbye to Robert, and there are traditional Hebrew words that are said before making this tear. And I'd like those of you who are wearing the ribbon to please repeat these Hebrew words after me. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam dayan ha'emet. These words mean, praised are you, eternal our God, ruler of the universe, judge of truth. For we know it was God's eternal judgment that Robert's life on this earth has come to an end. We will always keep him in our hearts. You can choose to wear this ribbon today, the first week of mourning, or the period of Shloshim, 30 days. You may be seated. If you choose to wear the ribbon beyond today, or even just today, and you go out into the world and people are seeing you wearing this torn ribbon, hopefully they'll understand that it means you are in a period of mourning, and they will have compassion on you. Our hearts go out to this beautiful family, to Phyllis, to Peter and Johnny, to Karen and Dan, to Debbie and Howard, Gary and Sheryl, to Lizzie, Jesse, Brett, Benji, Leah, Eli, and Mari. Our hearts go out to all of you, and we want to thank those of you who are here physically as well as virtually, supporting the family, giving them your hugs, your love, and your support during this difficult time. At a time such as this, we often turn to the book of Psalms, looking for comfort and solace. Psalm 121. I will lift up mine eyes unto the mountains. From whence shall my help come? My help cometh from the Lord, who made heaven and earth. He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth thee will not slumber. Behold, he that keepeth Israel doth neither slumber nor sleep. Although I've been reminded that I had the honor to meet Robert a long time ago for the great celebration of B'nai Mitzvah at Am Shalom, my former congregation where I had the honor to serve for 23 years as cantor. But I really didn't have the privilege and the honor to really know him. I'm so grateful to his family for taking the time to share so many wonderful, wonderful memories. Among many things, one thing that stood out was his love for horses at the racetrack. And I asked, did you go to Saratoga? Oh, yes. Well, Eileen Bauer wrote, at the track. So here I am in Saratoga, quite a lovely place. But visitors must do their part and watch the horses race. The weather was cooperative. The seats were in the shade. The thoroughbreds looked just the way that racers are portrayed. Such fun it was to place a bet and root with all my might. Though winning was the icing, I enjoyed each single bite. I love the town of Saratoga. Hope that I'll come back. But if I do, then once again, you'll find me at the track. I understand Robert had a really great, dry sense of humor, so much fun. You guys laughed a lot with him. I think humor is a wonderful gift to have. More people should have the kind of humor Robert had. Vivian Wade wrote, "A sense of humor is important, as shock absorbers are to a car. It helps to get over rough patches that come to us near and by far. A sense of humor is really needed, as a tightrope walker needs a pole. It helps to keep us well balanced. It can cheer and make joyful the soul. A sense of humor is necessary, as yeast is to the rising of bread. When raising our voices in laughter, happiness to others will spread. A sense of humor is important. The Bible in Proverbs, we read, "A merry heart does good like medicine, which is very good medicine indeed." As we turn back to the book of Psalms, you find in your service folders, and there are many outside if you don't have one, a psalm that I think speaks to all of us, regardless of our tradition or our faith. And so I'd like to invite you, and those of you joining us virtually, if you know the words to the 23rd Psalm, I'd like to invite you to join with me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. In so many ways, Robert Grossman succeeded. You know this better than I do. And how do we define success? Ralph Waldo Emerson defines it very well. To laugh often and much. To win the respect of intelligent people and the affection of children. To earn the appreciation of honest critics and endure the betrayal of false friends. To appreciate beauty. To find the best in others. To leave the world a bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition. To know even one life has breathed easier because you have lived. This is to have succeeded. Robert succeeded big time. We have several speakers today. I want to share some memories, and it's my honor to first call upon his children, Karen, Debbie, and Gary.
First, I just want to thank everybody for showing up here today, and everybody who's watching online, everyone who sent beautiful food, gorgeous flowers, emotionally touching notes, and supportive phone calls. We're all so grateful for the outpouring that we have been receiving. So the rabbi told us that the purpose of the eulogy is to remember his life. So we're going to give you the perspective of what it was like to be one of his children. A few adjectives to describe my dad: quiet, always present, provider, generous, and kind. In his youth, he was athletic. We know this because he always pulled out his high school yearbook and scrapbook, which had clippings about what a great ball player he was. But in his older years, he became an armchair athlete. I remember being called in to the living room while he was sitting in his chair thinking, oh no, what did I do? What am I in trouble? And he'd look at me and say, and I don't know if he did this to you guys, you can say, but he'd look at you and he'd say, can you change the channel? There were no remote controls then. So this athletic man getting up to go change the channel was too much. But it's something that we fondly remember. And what? Did he do that to you?
Oh,
yeah. Did he do that to you?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm not the only one. He also had his chair, the quintessential dad chair. If by chance he wasn't in the room and you got a chance to sit in that chair, you took it, right? But when he came in the room, he had a very interesting way to get you to move. He would just stand there and stare at you, because my dad didn't talk a lot. He would just stare you down, and you'd kind of look at him, and you'd say, what? And he'd say, my chair, So anyway, he always loved cars, and Gary can maybe talk more about that. But I remember in high school, he had a yellow Firebird, and this was in the late 1970s. That was about as cool as you could get. He let me drive it to school one day, and that was pretty amazing. So I'll always remember that. His humor was a huge part of who he was. He was bald early, and he was never ashamed or embarrassed of it. He embraced it. But he did have this really ugly wig that he would sometimes put on, not say anything, and just come out into the living room if people were over, or, just to be funny. And it was all twisted, and it was never on right. But it was really funny, and we always got a good laugh out of that. In fact, he had an expression when he was joking around. He'd say, "I'm giving you the coconuts." Did you ever hear him say that? Yeah. So anyway. My dad had a lot of nicknames. We're a family of nicknames. Robert became Bob, Rob, Bobert, Grobert, which I think one of my cousins, you did that? Mom did that. He also had a nickname from his work, Riggle. He was an options trader, and all the traders have a little badge with their initials, and his was RLG, but it was already taken. So he did RGL. And all the guys started calling him Riggle, and it became such a thing associated with him that even his car license plate said Riggle. So, if you've read that in the obituary or something, that's the genesis of where that came from. But probably his best and most important nickname was given to him by Elizabeth, and that was Papa. Because my dad was the most amazing grandfather that anybody could ever want. And as a parent, and as a child of his, when he became a grandfather, he totally transformed. He still was quiet, but when you're with kids, you don't need a lot of words. And I remember one time going to visit, and he was always the guy that would babysit, that would drive them places. He would do anything. And I remember wanting to go with my mom and go for a walk and go exercise. And they must have been 3 or 4 years old. And I said, Dad, will you watch them? And my kids were twins, and they weren't easy. And he sat there and said, sure. And I left, and he was sitting at the computer, and they were sitting one on each knee, and they were playing Maisie the Mouse, which takes a lot of patience for any person to sit through that. And you liked it? And I remember leaving and coming back an hour later, and they were in the same exact position. He sat for an hour playing with them on his lap. I called him after that the human armchair. And it was like this most beautiful thing, because who else could do that? You know? So I'm so grateful that he had that time in his life, that he was able to find that kind of joy and have those kind of relationships. The other thing that was really important to him was his friends, and especially over time and living in Glencoe, he developed this coffee group. And I remember that when I would come to visit, my mom would say, can you get up early? Dad wants you to go to coffee with him. He would never ask me. Mom was his mouthpiece. And so I went. I always tried to go at least once when I was there. And it was really amazing as a child of his to observe him with his peers, or they weren't his peers, they were all much younger than him. But it was really amazing to observe how he behaved and how he interacted. And he was so proud when I would come there. He would introduce me to everyone, and he would go up and order me something. And it was just such a wonderful thing to watch and to be part of. So I'm glad I got up early, at least once every time I came, to be part of that. So just in conclusion, I just want to say that we're all so grateful I'm grateful specifically for the lessons he taught me. And one of the most important lessons was about being happy with simple things. I remember when my parents were coming to visit, and my mom and I were saying, well, what's Dad gonna do? Well, do you have a chair outside? Yeah. You have an ashtray? You have a newspaper? That's all he needs to be happy. And what a great lesson. And a cigar, yes. That was what the ashtray was for. But what a great lesson to learn that really just the most basic, simple things were all you need to be happy and have a good day. You don't need to have a lot of fancy comings and goings. So I want to say that him, together with my mother, made us a family. And the three of us, I can speak for you guys, we're all very, very grateful for that. And he always made sure that we had what we needed. We never had to go and ask. He just provided. And there was never any strings attached or any expectations from him. It was always there for us, whatever we needed. And we'll always be grateful that we had him for as long as we did. We miss him terribly, but we're blessed to have had him as our dad. Okay.
My turn. Well, I knew I should have checked with my sister on what she was writing about, so there might be a little overlap. So if you don't mind indulging me, and just in case I put the glasses on. It was recommended when speaking today that we reflect from all perspectives, not just the way we know him in the present. So here we go. One of my earliest memories of my dad was dancing together with me standing on his feet. It was after he came home from work because he was wearing a suit and dress shoes, and I remember feeling like a princess. To me, he was larger than life. In fact, I might have been the only person who believed he was 5'10". Our dad was kind, gentle, generous, funny, and a whole lot more. And as I got older, I realized how special he really was. But I don't think anyone who knew him and all of his wonderful qualities would ever describe him as excessively active. It is at this point that I'd like to thank Dr. Joseph Jackson, who invented the remote control. I say this because, as my sister pointed out, he would literally call us from the other side of the house to come change the channel on the television. He and I shared our love for cartoons, when I was little, of course, and later on with really anything that moved on the screen. Whenever I came to the house, he would be in his favorite chair, which no one would dare sit in if he was in the house at the time. And I would stop and watch whatever he was watching just to share that time with him. He was the calming force in our home, and I seriously can only remember one time during our childhood when he lost his temper. It took us all by surprise, but it was towards Karen, thank God. So we were in the clear.
Great.
When I got older, I loved going to the racetrack with him. We would walk into Arlington, and it was as if we were walking into Cheers, where everyone knew his name. Hi, Bob. How you doing, Bob? Who do you like today, Bob? I felt like I was there with a celebrity. He taught me how to read a racing form and how to handicap the horses. When we were done doing our work, we would confer on our picks. We also shared a love for fried matzah. We liked it well done with sweet and low. For all those who are saying ick, no shaming, no judging. He always supported our life decisions. There is no question that my best decision so far was marrying my husband, Howard, because he not only gained a friend, but more importantly, it gave him 3 of his 7 grandchildren. He was a wonderful dad and loved us all very much, but there is no disputing that we were just the stepping stones to an even greater joy, grandchildren. He loved making a child, any child, smile or laugh. They reciprocated, gravitating to him. They must have sensed his aura of trust and ease. He had that way with dogs as well, but that might have had something to do with the dog bones that he kept in his pockets. My children knew that they could go to Papa for anything, and he would always say yes. He was a man of few words, and yet he touched so many lives. I am proud to be standing here as one of his children, and I am choosing to believe that wherever he has been reunited with his best friend Charlie and all of his uncles, and they say to him, "Hey, Robert, we've missed you. We're on our way to the track. Let's go."
It's tough to go last. I find myself mentally crossing things out as they were speaking. But I've had the honor of speaking before at different events, and I've never written out a speech before, but this one I actually wrote out because I wanted to make sure that I got everything in. My dad was special. He was funny. Not corny funny, just funny. Honest, strong, caring, generous, and compassionate. He was a man of few words, but when he spoke, people listened. It was either going to be funny or it was going to be important. He was cool. He just had this look about him. My dad was a major athlete when he was young, and he was always into sports. Those who know me know that I have no athletic ability whatsoever. I may not have been the perfect son for him in that respect, but it didn't matter. I was the perfect son for him. What I did get from him, amongst many other things, was my love for the automobile. I can remember back to when I was 4 years old. He had a red 1965 Mustang Coupe. I can picture it in my mind to this day, sitting in our driveway in Los Angeles. He replaced it with a gorgeous 1969 Lincoln Mark III. It was silver with a red interior, and it was the cat's meow. I mean, if you had that car back in 1969, you were special. We would drive down Sunset Boulevard into Brentwood on Sunday mornings to the drugstore to get a newspaper and a candy bar. We eventually moved to the East Coast. I remember him taking me on the train from our home in Connecticut to New York City to see my first auto show. We went to breakfast at some restaurant first. It was bustling with people. I must have been around 7 or 8. My dad held onto my hand. I felt safe. I was with my dad, and he was cool. We would go to the auto show several more times over the years. It's a tradition that Leah and I have carried on. After selling the family business, my dad needed to reinvent himself and decided to try options trading in Chicago. He would fly to Chicago on Sundays and fly back to Connecticut on Fridays. He became a successful trader at the options exchange, and we eventually moved to Chicago. Rather than explaining his complicating job to me as a 7th grader, he simply told me, if anyone asks, just tell them I'm in the mafia. He looked like it, so he got me a job as a runner at the exchange my sophomore year of high school. I clearly remember the first day. Getting in the car, pulling out of the garage, and he'd light up a cigar and turn on his favorite cassette at the time, Whitney Houston. Every day going down, every day coming back, Whitney Houston, the same cassette, just playing over and over. I had no idea at the time what a rock star my dad had become down there. People would find out that he was my dad, and it was like I was related to a famous person. I would stop and watch him as I ran around doing my job there. It was the coolest thing to watch him trade. He was so quick, so focused, and so on his game. He was getting pretty into his hobby of racing horses at that time. He would leave the floor early on Fridays to go to the track and trusted me to drive his new Jaguar home without him. I had my license for like a year and a half at that point. One day I got stuck in traffic on the express lanes, and I pulled some crazy illegal maneuver to get out of the express lanes and get out of the traffic. Unfortunately for me, one of his friends saw the move and told him about it. When he got home from the track that night, he said, "So how was your drive home today?" And I said, it was good. And he mentioned that he knew about it. And it could be somebody out there watching right now. I don't know who turned me in, but he never got mad about it. I could probably count on one hand how many times in my life he ever got mad at me. And I'm sure that I gave him plenty of opportunities. One thing that I'll miss, whenever my mom and I would get in a fight, and it didn't happen that often, a few days would go by and my phone would ring and the caller ID would say, "Papa," and he would say, "Gary, I think you should call your mother." That's when I knew I was in trouble. Fast forward to current years. He became such an amazing grandfather to all of his grandchildren. They all loved Papa. They had an ongoing contest of who could have him on the phone the longest.
I won.
You won?
You're not a grandchild. I don't care.
You're not a grandchild. We
play.
would compare lengths of time of how long we could keep him on the phone. He was my hero. He was one of my strongest supporters when I decided to reinvent myself and change careers 2 years ago. He had faith in me, and he taught me what it meant to be a man and a father and how to treat people. Dad, I love you, and I will always be thinking about you. And the three of us will make sure that Mom is taken care of and happy.
And now it's my honor to call upon Howard and Lizzie.
It's going to be a little hard speaking with a cigar in my mouth and a mask, but this is pretty much what you saw anytime you saw Bob Grossman. You know, the day was Thursday, September 16th, 1993. First day of Rosh Hashanah. I went to the high holidays with a friend every year, and by the time we got there, the main congregation was already full. So we went into the annex, which was the former main congregation, and sat down. They were streaming the services, and they had a big screen TV. And as we're sitting there waiting, I hear the words that will stay with me forever. If they can have a big screen TV, at least they could put on the Ryder Cup. I happen to turn around, and it was Bob who had mentioned that. And at the same time, I turned around, I noticed there was a young lady sitting there as well. That was the first time I saw my future wife. So for Bob, I owe him a debt that can never be repaid. Robert Lowell Bob Grossman, also known as Riggle, Riggs, Stocky Bob, Bobo, his favorite title, Papa or Pops, passed away at age 84. I only had the pleasure of knowing him for 1/3 of those years. So we'll focus on that a little bit. We had coffee together almost every one of those mornings and developed our own little coffee cabal mafia. The group varied in number on any given morning, but all told, we had enough for a minion. Bob was the elder statesman of this group, as much as 45 years older than some, but to a person, everyone had their own unique, special relationship with Bob. Personally, I've received so many beautiful, heartfelt notes, calls, emails, texts in his honor. We enjoyed each other's company so much that we had many other afternoon and evening excursions, whether it be dinner at Nightingale Hole in the Wall, EJ's, or a trip to Arlington Park where Bob really held court. He had his own private room, his own private teller, and he taught us all about quinella, the trifecta, the superfecta, daily double. He was a better gambler than most. It took him longer to lose his money. But one of our most special and favorite excursions was to South Bend. One particular trip, it was very funny. Bob threw out the first ball, and as he walked to the mound at this single-A ballpark, the music, Walk Like a Man, was playing, and there was an entire biography that was read. Well, his first pitch made it about 10 feet, and he almost fell as he threw the ball off the mound. cracked us all up. He's teased and razzed mercilessly at this time, and he'd come back with a big smile, crooked smile on his face, with the word assholes. Our relationship was never that of a father-son-in-law, but more as real friends. More afternoons than you can imagine. Bob would be in the library, propped in his favorite chair at our house, a cigar in his mouth. A lot of times, the TV wasn't even on because he didn't know how to turn it on. So I'd come in, say, hey, Bob, you want to watch something? Yeah. Turn the TV on, we'd sit, watch a ball game, golf tournament. Typical conversation may be something like, oh my God, did you see that shot? Bob's response, ah. Those were typical conversations, and those are the moments I'll miss most.
As you all know, Papa was notorious for his excellent conversational skills and effective communication strategies. So much so, in fact, that he could often summarize complete thoughts into a few mere words. Now, while his words were often unintelligible, they always seemed to carry the same message: I love you. When my siblings, cousins, and I think of Papa, we think of unconditional love. And as the 7 of us grow older and wiser, we realize this is neither a trait nor quality possessed by many. Yet somehow, this ability to provide unconditional love proved to be an integral and natural part of Papa's disposition. Whether it was adventures to Nickel City, surprise visits that included sweets and other goodies, trips to the movie theater, or excursions to the OTB, our time spent together was nothing less than extraordinary, and love was conveyed effortlessly. As a young girl, I would frequently go over to Papa and Fifi's house after school. I knew that without a doubt, Papa would be lying horizontally on his bed, watching golf or an old Western as he dozed off for his afternoon nap. I would walk into the room, he would greet me with a simple, "Hi, sweetheart," hand me the remote, and fall right back to sleep. In those moments, there were no expectations. Papa did not request that I initiate a conversation, debate politics, or talk about the highs and lows of my day. I was able to just be. I was able to be fully at peace while sharing in his silence. Over the years, I have found myself looking back on these moments, thinking about how special it is to be with someone that somehow transmits love solely through their presence. This leads me to believe that even if Papa is no longer physically present, his love will continue to emanate through our thoughts and our memories. May we all continue to carry his memory and let his light shine through.
And last but not least, it's my honor to call upon Phyllis. You want to speak? Yeah? You still want to speak?
I haven't really fully prepared any special speech today. I know it's unusual for a wife to get up after her husband has passed, but everyone here is someone that he truly cared about. There isn't anyone here that he didn't have special feelings for. I would describe him, of course, differently than my children and my grandchildren. We had a different relationship. But one thing about my husband, he was a gentleman. And you think about the word, he was gentle, and he was a man. And that was his essence. He was a creature of habit. He wore the same, when he wore cologne, he wore the same Aramis cologne, which Karen dug out today for us to wear. And his clothes smelled like him. As a husband, I was young. We had a blended family, but we never thought of the word stepchildren. That wasn't in our vocabulary. We had our children. And we raised together 3 magnificent human beings and their offspring who were his heart. He loved me, but I think he liked them better. They didn't tell him what to do. There's so much to say about a man, but he was really a man of his time. We had a very traditional marriage. I cooked, I did the laundry, and in later years, he started to empty the dishwasher. But I had to put the dishes in just the way he would like to empty them. So I did that. And for years, he brought me, when I drank coffee, he brought me coffee every morning from the coffee shop. Then I stopped drinking coffee and I discovered a Keurig. So that ended that. I stand here today, there isn't anybody here that he didn't love, really. All of his friends, I know that there are friends watching this virtually, and we miss you. We miss all our buddies. We miss our buddies in California, where we had a wonderful, wonderful 4 years there. Tons of friends. We loved our house. We loved our babies. Everything was wonderful. Our dog, our cat, everything. Anyway, long story short, here we are today with our nearest and dearest, and I really think this is the way a farewell to Robert should be. Just the people he really, really cared for. So thank you for being here. Thank you for your wishes, your phone calls, your texts, your whatever you did, your food, your planning, being here in this terrible year of the pandemic and still being here for us. And we appreciate it, whether by virtual technology or real technology. Thank you.
So many incredible memories and stories that have been shared. As I told the family, I'd like to go last and fill in whatever blanks might be left. There aren't that many blanks. You guys covered a lot of ground. You know, Phyllis, you said it was 54 years the two of you drank from the cup of life, and how you each enjoyed doing your own thing. And then there were, of course, you got to travel the globe together and experience so many wonderful, wonderful adventures and experiences together, the two of you with your whole family, and how wonderful that was. He was very close, you shared, with his Uncle Charlie, who was really more like a brother to him, only 5 years older. They loved going to the racetrack together on Saturdays, and how they would talk every day. How sad it was when Charlie died. Phyllis, you talked about how Robert enjoyed your cooking, and you especially in our meeting talked about your grilled cheese sandwiches. They must be extraordinary. But he was really a meat and potatoes guy, right? He loved his steaks and he loved his hamburgers, but he learned to like fish And he learned to like vegetarian, right? And he liked going out to eat. He was someone that you could always count on. There were many adjectives that you all used, those of you who spoke, to describe him, but there were a couple others that you shared with me that I'm not so sure were shared today. He was naughty. But yet he was gentle, and he was kind, and he was dependable, and just so much of the work I do as a rabbi is just being there, being present for somebody. You don't have to say anything. And Robert wasn't a rabbi, right? But he knew the value, I think, and you all appreciated the fact that he was just there. He didn't have to say anything. But so often it is our nonverbal communication, and you all got that from him. You knew that he loved you. You knew he was listening, that he cared about you. You knew he was someone you could always call for anything. What a blessing. What a gift. He was like a father or a grandfather to many people who aren't related to him. He liked being that old guy that people would like to hang out with. That Starbucks group of people are going to miss him in the morning for their cup of coffee and him just being there, whether he talked or he didn't talk. They're going to miss him. The dogs in the neighborhood who would come by because they knew he's sitting there on the circular driveway with dog treats in his pocket. He'd always have dog treats wherever he went. He loved animals as much as he loved people. He loved his dogs. He loved your dogs. He loved to play bridge and tennis and golf. And in the obituary, I love that it said, you can take the boy out of New England, but you can't take the New England out of the boy. That was great. I understand that, Sheryl, you made this beautiful collage. And it's a labor of love. How did you get to choose? There are probably millions of pictures from which to choose, but you chose wonderful pictures. The family shared with me how Robert was often one in the warmer weather wearing his shorts and a t-shirt with a pocket in it, or in the colder weather, he would often be wearing a turtleneck with his jeans and sneakers. We know that none of us are going to live forever. But we do believe in the Jewish faith that our soul can continue to live on. And the way that that happens is by continuing to share the stories, document them in all ways. The technology keeps changing. But even on a piece of paper, you can write things down. You can create the scrapbooks. So that future generations, when these beautiful grandchildren someday, God willing, get married and have kids of their own, they need to know about Robert. And sometimes we forget incredible memories and stories. So while you still remember them, jot them down so that these memories can live on l'dor vador, from generation to generation. Remember how many times you laughed together. Remember how he was always there for you. And although, as it was said, his physical presence is no longer, he will always be in your heart. Cherish your wonderful memories of Robert. Zecher Tzadik Livracha, the memory of the righteous is forever a blessing. And let us all say, Amen. did want to add, and forgive me for not, I have a whole page of notes here. He was a wonderful brother to Peter and Johnny, and he was a loving son of Edward and Rosalind. You each have your own memories and how blessed you have been to have had those memories, those years together. The author of the following is unknown. It's entitled, A Life Well Lived. A life well lived is a precious gift of hope and strength and grace from someone who has made our world a brighter, better place. It's filled with moments sweet and sad, with smiles and sometimes tears, with friendships formed and good times shared and laughter through the years. A life well lived is a legacy of joy and pride and pleasure, a living, lasting memory our grateful hearts will treasure. In your service folders, you find the concluding prayers, the El Malei Rachamim and the Mourner's Kaddish. Again, there are extra service folders outside the chapel for those who need it. I invite you to please rise for these concluding prayers. El Malei Rachamim Say menucha tachat kanfei hashchina. O God, full of compassion, thou who dwellest on high, grant perfect rest beneath the sheltering wings of thy presence among the holy and pure who shine as the brightness of the firmament, unto the soul of Robert Lowell Grossman, son of Edward and Rosalind, who has gone unto eternity. Lord of mercy, bring him under the cover of thy wings, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. Be God's possession, and may his repose be peace. And let us all say, Amen. The final prayer is the Mourner's Kaddish. It is said that the angels brought this prayer down from heaven. It possesses wonderful power. Truly, if there is any bond strong enough to link heaven to earth, it is this prayer. So I'd like to invite all of you and those joining us virtually to join with me in exalting God's name with these traditional words you find on the back page of your service folders. I have an extra copy. As together we exalt God's name with these words. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, bi'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'v'yomechon, u'v'chaye dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'v'zman kari v'imeru. Amen. Yehei shemei rabbah, mevarach le'olam ulomei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar, v'yitromam, v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar, v'yitalal, shemei dekudesha, b'richu, le'ela, min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, da'amiran ba'alma v'imeru, amen. Yehi shalama rabba, min shamaya, v'chayim aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imeru, amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imeru, amen. May the author of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort all the bereaved among us, and let us all say, amen. Please be seated as this concludes our service for Robert.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the service. Memorial contributions in his memory to the JCCs of Chicago, the American Heart Association would be appreciated. For the many, many people that are online, that information is on the service folder, and for those who are here, or those who are online, it's on our website. For those who are here, it's on our service folder. This concludes the service. You may return to your cars.